I think in any leadership role, the threat is that you get satisfied and that you just maintain status quo. And I think we have to keep our eye on improving K-12 and improving higher education so that we can best set up students ahead. So any time that conversations are in front of us that challenge our thinking, I think that's very, very important. So I love being secretary at a time such as
Time
this.
of change.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I'm joined by Indiana Secretary of Education, Dr. Katie Jenner. Welcome.
Thank you.
Katie also chairs the State Board of Education, overseeing a state education budget of over $10 billion annually, more than 2,200 schools, more than 1 million students, and tens of thousands of teachers and administrators. Katie moved up the ranks of public education at Madison Consolidated Schools, a district in southern Indiana. She started as a teacher, rose to school-level administrator, and eventually became assistant superintendent of the district. In 2018, she left Madison to become vice president of K-12 initiatives and statewide partnerships at Ivy Tech Community College, one of the nation's largest statewide community college systems. A year later, Katie became senior education advisor to Governor Eric Holcomb. She worked in that role a little over a year before Governor Holcomb appointed her Indiana's first Secretary of Education, a title she's held since early 2021. In December of last year, when then Governor-elect Mike Braun was appointing the cabinet for his new administration, he announced that he wanted Katie to remain as Secretary of Education, and he gave her a larger portfolio when he reorganized state government under 8 cabinet secretaries. Governor Braun cited her success as secretary, noting that she had secured a $170 million investment in literacy, the state's largest ever. She also implemented a comprehensive marketplace aimed at filling teaching positions and has overseen statewide improvement in graduation rates. Katie, welcome again to the Indiana 250 podcast.
Thank you, Nate. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about you first and your background. Where did you grow up and what was your path to getting into public education as a career?
So I grew up in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I often share, you and I were in Evansville just yesterday. We spent a lot of time in Indiana growing up. I mean, that's where the shopping was at Evansville's Mall, the Christmas tree farm, the drive-in. It was all in Indiana. I met my husband in college, and my husband grew up in Madison, Indiana. They had have a law firm right on Main Street. And then that's where we decided to land when we got married. So we still live in Madison, Indiana.
Madison's a beautiful city.
It's a beautiful city and a great place to raise kids. My calling to education, I think it really started. My mom was on the school board for about 20 years and was president of the school board most of that time. And this was during a time where the phone was still connected to the wall.
I remember that.
And our phone was in the kitchen. And so my mom would often, which is the center of the house, right? My mom would often be on calls with various people. Could be the superintendent, could be parents, could be, a community leader talking about education and truly solving problems. And I think that is probably what piqued my interest. And then in college, I was intending to go to law school. It sealed the deal that I was going to go into education right before my senior year.
Okay.
And then haven't looked back since.
And so you spent time in the classroom.
I did.
Remind us what grade level that you taught and how important those experiences were and are to what you're doing today.
What grade level do you think I taught?
Okay. I'm going to guess you were a fifth grade teacher.
I get that most commonly, that at elementary. And I was actually a high school teacher.
Okay.
I was a career and technical education teacher, specifically teaching business classes. So entrepreneurship was my absolute favorite class to teach. I had a couple sections of that, marketing, and it was specifically sports and entertainment marketing. I always say it was a trick to get kids to sign up for marketing class
Right.
because you add the two, and then business law. And then it was, again, about 20 years ago, if not a little more. So I also taught Microsoft Office certification courses back when that was a credential that business really wanted. So that's what I taught, and obviously it connects to today, specifically when you think about empowering students to be more entrepreneurial and to think big. I connect a lot back to having those classes, and again, when you're an elective course, Nate, you teach a variety of students in one classroom. You have special education students. You have students who may not know English. You have advanced placement students. So you have the full gamut, and it's all about empowering each and every one for their purpose.
Yeah, it's great. So you initially started as Secretary of Education with Governor Holcomb, and of course now serving with Governor Braun. Maybe talk a little bit about the charge that Governor Holcomb gave you when you became Secretary of Education, and how, if any, it differs now with Governor Braun.
Yeah, so in education, sometimes I think we overcomplicate this space. Really, it's about making sure students master the foundations of reading and STEM, which that was a passion of Governor Holcomb's. It's also, of course, a passion of Governor Braun. And then rethinking high school is something that is really picking up steam big time when we think about apprenticeships and work-based learning and credentials of value. Some of the potential we have as a state. I think Governor Braun is really taking that and we're going to run with it. Making sure we have quality teachers is definitely a point that both governors discussed. Governor Holcomb, of course, was really adamant about increasing teacher compensation. Governor Braun just had a bill passed to increase that base pay for the minimum base pay for our teachers, even in a tight budget year. So a focus for both. With Governor Braun, we're very focused on accountability. We're going to be building out the future accountability system rulemaking will begin in June. And we're just going to keep driving forward.
I would imagine there might be a little bit of difference. Governor Braun is a business guy, and so had started a business, running a business, and so the focus on entrepreneurship you mentioned, and thinking about the high school diploma, and how we can better prepare students for those that want to attend college, great, and those that don't necessarily want to attend college, but they do want to advance their lives and advance their education through credentialing, like you talked about. So I could see maybe there's a little bit of a difference from that perspective.
Well, Governor Braun has even when he was U.S. Senator, he traveled around the state and visited high schools and highlighted models that are already incorporated work-based learning and the hands-on and really connecting to the students' purpose, their career ahead. And education is a way to get there, depending on what your career choice might be. So he also is passionate about skill development. We have to have students who can communicate and who can work together and who have work ethic. And I think that comes from him owning a business and hiring many, many employees over the years.
So kind of going hand in hand with this, there have been recent changes to the high school diploma. And some of those changes I know are to be able to make it easier and maybe incentivize students to get more hands-on, applied approaches and getting into business, perhaps while they're in school, like an apprenticeship. And Maybe talk a little bit about some of those changes and why they're so important today.
Yeah, well, I'll start with a question that I commonly will ask a room, which is like envision, and those listening can do this too. Envision the oldest person that you know who graduated from an American high school. Once you have them in your mind, think about a current junior or senior in high school in Indiana or in most states across our
Yeah.
country. If you ask them both for their transcript, they would be almost identical. And yet, we were with business leaders yesterday. The world around us is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Knowledge is now at our fingertips. And really skill development is what we
Right.
have to lean into.
Right.
So the new high school diploma is absolutely designed to, of course, maintain rigor, but every student's rigor looks a little bit different in terms of what their interests might be.
Mhm.
So there are flexible options and paths, more personalized. I would say we're looking at that freshman sophomore year. Get your high school foundational courses. There are some requirements there, including some new requirements like personal finance is
That's
now
a great one.
required for every student
That's
in
a really
Indiana.
important one change. That's great.
Communication is now required. There's always been the civics element with government that remains, in U.S. history that remains. And then the junior, senior year, what an opportunity to actually put your learning into action with apprenticeships or work-based learning, getting out in businesses.
The other advantage of getting out for students to get out is that they can figure out sooner, I would think, what they want to do, what they like, and versus waiting until after high school and then going to college and still not sure, and potentially bringing up student debt and so forth. So I assume that's a huge opportunity for students to just understand what they like and don't like sooner.
It absolutely is. And just today, I was at a school doing apprenticeships in the early learning space. So there's students who wanted to be teachers. We talked exactly about that. So are you still interested in being a teacher? Nearly all of them said yes. One of them said, now I'm thinking about teaching. I'm also thinking about ministry, but all of that is good. I just left my office. There was a room full of students who, from rural Indiana, who drove up, and they are all working on their welding certification. And every single one of them had a different path. You had one student who was going to go to Rose-Hulman to be a civil engineer.
Mm-hmm.
You had another student going on to Ivy Tech. You had another student going to be a pipe fitter, an apprenticeship. So what an opportunity while in high school to really discover, again, what your unique purpose is and what could be ahead. And let's make sure we have that recipe for success for our parents and families to know, for our students to know, and really set them up for success.
So I want to turn to literacy rates. I know it's something that our state and under your leadership has been focused on. And I think the current goal is to try to have 95% literacy among third graders by 2027.
Yes.
Talk about the strides we've made on that front and how big a stretch that is to get there for the state of Indiana.
So hitting 95% by 2027, we knew that was a stretch goal. But when it comes to kids, when it comes to making sure all kids can read, and the fact that if they're not reading by the end of third grade, you can predict their life outcomes ahead with, are they going to graduate? What's their median income going to be? I mean, you can really predict that. So it's so critical. We set that stretch goal intentionally. We have made strides. And of course, to level set, we even prior to COVID, Nate, we were declining with literacy. So we have had about a decade of decline. And I get that that's hard to talk about, but it's real. COVID exacerbated that.
Yeah.
So we have had to rally the troops all over the state, including teachers who've been phenomenal in working on the science of reading training, parents and families. To really engage with your child, read to your child, or have them read to you.
Sure.
But we have been making strides. We had our largest or our highest ever NAEP ranking. We were ranked 6th in the nation in 4th grade and 8th grade reading, so top 6. And what I'm most excited about when you look at the NAEP data, the nation's report card, is really our lowest students are growing the most. And nationwide, that is just not a trend. Our high students are continuing to grow, but low students have been stagnant since COVID. In Indiana, in reading, it's our lowest students our high students are moving, but our low students are really moving in 4th grade reading. And I totally attribute that to the work of our teachers and the Indiana literacy cadre and any number of initiatives that are moving the needle.
It's great to hear that that's happening.
Yes.
I know our First Lady is, it's one of the things that she's taken a lot of interest in and spending time on the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Is that the right name of it? That sends out books free of charge to kids and parents to be able to read to their kids. That's a really important initiative too.
It sure is. And access to books is where it starts. I mean, I looked, before you got in here, I was checking out what books you have.
Yeah, these are special books.
These are special books.
These are mostly, not all, but a lot of them are from the Liberty Fund.
That's what I was told. But you think about it. Imagine a 7-year-old in Indiana without any books at home. That's hard for many people. Probably most listeners can't even imagine that, but it's very, very real. So getting students to read starts with access. So First Lady Braun has taken that initiative on and is working to raise some money. I'm sure any listeners who are interested in contributing, they're welcome to reach out directly to me and I'll connect you with her. But we have to keep that going in Indiana. And of course, right now, we have all of our 92 counties involved.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I know a little bit about that, and it's an incredible initiative.
Yes.
So I hope a lot of people do contribute, and that grows across the state in a significant way. So I want to turn to higher education for a moment. I know some exciting news that you've worked on, streamlining the process for high school graduates to get admission to our state colleges and universities. Can you talk a little bit about those changes and what that might mean?
Sure. Well, going back to what we talked about before with the transcript, when we redesigned what the high school diploma could look like in Indiana, and that was a very public process, which is intentional. That's what allows us to get to the best product.
Yeah.
We had higher education leaders on up to the president of our various colleges and universities involved, business and industry leaders involved, of course, our military leaders involved. And the goal as a state was really, how do we make sure this diploma means something and is valuable for a student, regardless of what path they choose to take? So in order to make it valuable, you have to show it some level of currency. And that was really the announcement we had in, probably late March, to say that if a student earns the Enrollment Honors Plus seal, they are guaranteed admission to any of our public colleges or universities in Indiana, including Purdue, including IU, Ball State, Indiana State. Once you start, you have to go down the list. University of Southern Indiana, Ivy Tech, Vincennes, and I'm missing one.
Did you say Ball State?
6. I said Ball State.
Oh, okay.
But we'll come back to it. I love them all, and we're thankful for all of them. But then some of our private schools are also joining in. And, multiple reach outs from our private college presidents like, hey, we want to direct admit as well.
That's
and then
great.
for those students who want to go into an employment path, we have some of our top companies in Indiana. I'll just mention a couple: Eli Lilly, Cummins. They have said we will guarantee any student who earns this an interview and hire them if possible. Of course, that depends on the market.
Sure.
Our trades have said we're guaranteeing an apprenticeship for any student who earns this. And then in the military, they've produced currency by allowing for a student to be promoted faster through the military ranks. So The key is that diploma means something. We need to continue to watch our data, and we need to continue to improve it based on what we learn.
It's exciting. I think that will incentivize, hopefully, more students, more high school graduates to really think seriously about continuing their education.
Yes.
So it's a great move. So nationally, there's always a lot going on nationally, just a little bit. But education policy, I mean, you're in the thick of it. Education policy is really taking center stage. Of course, the Trump administration announced that its goal is to eliminate the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education, and really with the intent being to have more local decision making made around education and what's taught and how it's taught. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be Secretary of Education at a time when so much is happening on the national stage and with those efforts around education reform.
Well, first of all, I mean, I love it. I think in any leadership role, the threat is that you get satisfied.
Yeah.
And that you just maintain status quo. I mean, I think we have to keep our eye on improving K-12 and improving higher education so that we can best set up students ahead. So, so any time that conversations are in front of us that challenge our thinking, I think that's very, very important. So I love being secretary at a time such as
Time
this.
of change.
I love it.
Yeah.
So in terms of U.S. Department of Education, I'm glad you asked because I think there are a lot of questions out there. What many people don't realize is as a state, we have for years and years and years, in every state in our country, we set our academic standards. We determine our curriculum. In Indiana, that curriculum is a local decision. We set our assessment. So really, the role of the U.S. DOE for years and years and years has been the distribution of Title I funds, or these are the ones most commonly discussed. Title I funds, which of course serves students in poverty, and IDEA funds, which serve students in special education. Both of those monetary line items are congressional.
Okay.
So let's say the U.S. DOE goes away tomorrow, which won't happen tomorrow because Congress has to make that ultimate call. But let's say it goes away tomorrow. As long as the budget line is still there with Congress and we're getting signals that yes, it will be, anyone could distribute money to the states. I think what we're really interested in is we get about $1 billion in Indiana. So if we could block grant that money, multiple funding streams that are coming, block grant the money in one, and then disperse that around some of the goals that we've set, some of what we've talked about today, reading, STEM, rethinking high school, ensuring that they still go to students in poverty and special education students. I think it would get some of the bureaucracy and compliance paperwork out of the way for our schools, which in our teachers, which many are spending a lot of time on today. So I think that's an opportunity as well.
Some of the critics of that idea, the block granting, the questions that they raise sometimes are around how do we ensure that the kids who are less fortunate are served, or kids with disabilities, and how do you think about that? If there's not a federal department saying this has to happen this way, is that
so it would make, because I think it's really important that the money goes still to students in poverty, students with special education. I think the opportunity that we have as a country is challenge us as states, set your goals, set your, and be very intentional about what those goals are, very specific. Be transparent about the data to the people. Hold yourselves accountable to what is showing return on investment and what is just not.
Right.
But those are the kinds of, I think, data points and information that would really help us collectively as states and as a country. So that money would still go to students in poverty or special education students, depending on the fund. It just could be a lot more seamless and more Indiana focused.
Yeah, and hopefully more money going to help where it's supposed to go to help
That's
the
exactly right.
students learn less bureaucracy, that type of return, hopefully.
Yes.
So we just had a legislative session
Yes.
pretty recently conclude, and some of the couple of big takeaways that I had, but there are probably a lot more that you can talk about too. But one was, of course, we learned that we are having a little bit more of a challenge than we thought as a state on the budget front in terms of tax collection. So higher education got hit with a 5% reduction in funding. But I do know on K through 12, there was good news. Maybe you could talk a little bit about both and where you see the challenges and opportunities coming out of the last session.
Sure. So you've probably seen this too, traveling around. I've noticed a lot of people, rightfully so, don't totally understand how the budget process works. So, of course, we get a December revenue forecast, and that really sets the mark for how the budget is built. And then the April revenue forecast every year is really the kicker.
Reality check.
It's the reality check.
Yeah.
So this year, our reality check was about a $2.4 billion deficit that had to be found very, very quickly. I of course, lost some sleep that week for sure, because education is 60% of our state's budget. What our General Assembly leadership and governor immediately committed to is K-12. They said that is our number one priority to not cut. So K-12 saw a 2% year one increase. So essentially you take the current budget, an additional 2%, and then the following year it's an additional 2% on top of that. I did speak with a superintendent just today who mentioned, well, that also includes curricular materials. And so I want to just flag the curricular materials was on top of the 2%. That happened at the 12th hour, 11th hour, whatever you want to say, but that was on top of, so that was an additional. And then the voucher dollars in year two, that was also an additional. So I think that's an important flag. Higher education, and again, I've had the opportunity to communicate in some way with all of our public higher ed institution presidents. Higher education saw a 5% cut, as you mentioned, across the board. So they're definitely going to have to do some belt tightening, if you will. And I think, and by the way, most state agencies, if not all, are also going to be in that situation. I think in many ways that can be a good thing. It really forces you to think about what is moving the needle. Let's invest more in that. What is not moving the needle? Might be time to let that go. So again, I see it as an opportunity for us to get better. And again, we have to seize the moment. There are a lot of uncontrollables we face. The budget is one. And we have to live within our means as a state.
Yeah. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Amen.
Maybe not good. Never let a crisis go to waste.
That's right.
But like you said, hopefully it's an opportunity to relook at things and try to find the things that are having the highest return on investment, right?
The other thing I would just flag, I think we'll also really need in some areas to work with philanthropy. Philanthropy has been a huge partner in K-12 and higher education, and really working together, again, to ask the tough questions. What is moving the needle? Let's invest in that. What's not? But philanthropy is going to be key in the next several years.
So you touched on the fact that K through 12 is not being cut. It's actually it's been a priority. It is a priority for the administration, for Governor Braun's administration and the legislature. I feel like we're doing better on the teacher pay front. Average teacher pay is now about $60,000 in the state of Indiana, if I've got that right. If that's right, how are we doing when you look around kind of our peers in the Midwest on teacher pay? Because that's always talked about as, gosh, we got to make sure that we're retaining and attracting really good teachers, right?
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, we're just above $60,000 for the average teacher pay. Um, the base salary used to be $40,000. It is now, as of the end of this session, sine die. One of the governor's priorities was to keep increasing that. It's now minimum of 45,000. I don't think there is anyone who doesn't believe that that should continue to go up. I think one thing that is often confusing to people, so I'll just clarify, the state distributes dollars locally based on students they serve. And then locally, they negotiate the teacher salaries. So all of that is public data. You can see that for every school corporation across the state. And it really varies, Nate, depending on the school corporation. I would encourage, if people have an interest in that, look at your local. We have to, again, continue to increase that. When you look at where Indiana falls national average, and this does not consider cost of living, Indiana still ticks a bit below national average. So I believe, and research has shown, the number one asset in a school for our kids in terms of learning is a quality teacher. And we have to make sure that the pay is such that if you're a biology 1 teacher, 3 years down the line, you don't get a knock on the door from a biotech business who says, I'll double your salary, which is pulling some of our teachers out from time to time. We're also seeing, though, Nate, some of the opposite in terms of teacher recruitment and retention. We're having people who have been in business and industry who, in fact, one of the teachers was just in my office. He was in business and industry for years and years, and he said, I was so glad to get out of that corporate world. And he got his work-based specialist certificate, and he's now with kids every day.
It's great.
It is fantastic.
Bring the perspective of industry to the classroom, which is
so
awesome.
If anyone is retired and listening to this podcast, if you have an interest in serving in one of our schools, we'd love to help you figure that out.
Cool. So let's talk about charter schools for a second. So Indiana has been a leader for years nationally in the charter school area, I know. Talk about what happened in this legislative session in terms of, I think it's called universal vouchers. Is that right? I think you kind of referenced it a little bit, like what happens in maybe year 2 of the budget cycle in terms of that. Talk about what exactly that means, universal vouchers, and kind of if there was an expansion of the parent choice or school choice. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So in Indiana, we are very, very committed to putting the power in the parents' hands to determine what is best for your child. So for some parents, that's a traditional public school right down the street. For some, it's a local charter school or a non-public school. In many families, you see one child going here and another child going there, depending on that unique student. So in Indiana, we after this session, I mean, we are essentially a free market where parents can choose what is best.
Is that really unique, or are there a lot of states today that fall into that?
Indiana is absolutely still considered a leader in this space in terms of putting the power in the hands of the parents to make the choice for their child. It's interesting, though, every state does it a little bit different in terms of how they set it up. So our number one school choice is still a traditional public school to another traditional public school that parents decide. But of course, an active charter community, an active non-public community. You asked about charter and vouchers. So I'm going to have a teacher moment with you real quick, Nate.
Will you?
Vouchers in Indiana are only for non-public schools. So when we talk about charter schools or public schools, so they get public state dollars that flow in a similar way for the most part as traditional public schools. This session, Senate Bill 1 also has them collecting those local property tax dollars depending on the students they serve. And then, of course, the non-public schools would have the voucher option.
I confused the two. Thank you for clarifying.
That's all right.
We've got. See, the influence of a good teacher can never be erased. I see that written over here.
You're
so
welcome.
You're already having a positive impact on me because I confused the two. Apples and oranges. We need to put orange up there.
The one thing that I would flag is for a long time in Indiana, we debated school type versus school type versus school type. And I think that is a huge threat. It's a dangerous place if we obsess over school type versus school type because we have incredible schools, traditional public, charter, non-pub, and we also have some struggling schools in each of those categories. But it really matters where you live, your child, their interest to determine, again, what's best for that student.
Makes sense. So we hear a lot about stackable credentials. It's kind of
we're jumping around.
Term of
we're
art.
Going.
Well,
I love this.
Are because
I love this, Nate.
You know,
and you studied up.
That's the way education policy is these days. We jump around a little bit. But I think this ties really to in some ways, but you tell me, in terms of the new diploma, the focus on modern day apprenticeships that are not just in the trades, but could be in banking, healthcare, life sciences. But talk about what that means when somebody hears stackable credentials, and why it matters that high school grads and maybe even high schoolers are starting to get credentialing earlier and moving their education forward so that they can get a great paying job one day.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just go straight to one of our key sectors in Indiana, healthcare. With healthcare, there are so many credentials that if you go down one path, you have to restart if you want to go down a separate path. That's one. I mean, we could talk about technology and information technology and computer science, cybersecurity. We could talk about that path. But the goal with stackable credentials, and I shared this with you yesterday, and I am a teacher, so I'm going to use a Lego reference. I mean, everybody knows what Legos are. If you have Legos stacked on top of each other, it makes one tall stack versus if you have the same number of Legos scattered flat on the ground. It really matters for people, for Hoosiers, if the on-ramps and off-ramps with training and higher education can be stacked. They don't have to restart again every single time. So you'll definitely see Indiana leading in this space. We'll work directly with business and industry, hear their voice on what is the need, and then work with our higher education and our CTE partners to determine how we can fill that need. But we'll likely attack that one sector at a time to start to build that system out for Hoosiers.
Well, this leads me to a question on
that. Can I flag something real quick? That also helps affordability. In that the high school work, we're seeing more and more students earning that first credential while in high school. And then they can go on to work for business and industry while going to school and earning that next level. Or they could continue going to school full time.
And in some of those cases, you've got businesses who are getting high schoolers coming to their business, and even before this modern day apprenticeship developed. I know Gaylor Electric, for example. They've been having for 15 years students from area high schools come and learn, a trade early. And so tell me on that front, what can businesses do to really make a difference in our state's future when it comes to the helping a student get
Yes.
to where they want to go. What can businesses do as well as, you mentioned philanthropy, but how about just our businesses in the state?
Yeah. So recognizing that every business is coming from a little bit of a different spot. Um, there are some businesses in some communities that have immediately leaned into having high school students be mentored, have a work-based learning experience at their place of business.
Hmm.
That is one example. And by the way, I would challenge our business leaders on that. Don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah,
But the key is that we immerse the students in that business, that it starts to become their potential talent pipeline.
yeah.
It's really a win-win. Another option that we're seeing in different parts of our state are student enterprises within schools. We have that in Perry County and Seymour and Madison. And I mean, I could name multiple different locations across our state. And the business and industry leaders, it's often rural. The business and industry leaders will often serve as essentially the advisory board for
Hmm.
this business. And you have within that student enterprise, you have a president and CEO. You have a project manager. You have the marketing person, the HR person.
Yeah,
But that is also teaching the students important skills and engaging them with a
yeah.
future interest.
One of the things that resonated with me, I went with a group. You were there last. I guess was it just last year we were in Zurich, or was that the year
Yes.
before? My time's flying by.
I think
So
it was last fall.
we
And
learned.
by the way, taxpayer funds did not pay for my trip at all. But it was an amazing learning
So we
experience.
learned, how the Swiss model
Yes.
of apprenticeship. And one of the things that really resonated with me when I heard business leaders talking about this, and just the people who've been really involved with putting together this over decades. So they've experimented, but they've gotten really good at it over the last couple of decades, but it's been going on for about 40 years, I think, is that just some of the basic soft skills that high schoolers learn just by having an apprenticeship, like showing up on time, accountability, being presentable, communication skills. Like
Right.
those are the skills that a lot of times, businesses are searching for and can't find. Like,
Absolutely.
especially with talent, just being,
How about working well with
yeah,
others
exactly.
on a team?
So I mean,
Yes.
those soft skills that are just some of the basics.
Yes.
Students can really benefit from, right, from getting engaged earlier.
Absolutely. And it's when you think about what can we learn from other states. We learned a lot again with reading from Mississippi. In the area of apprenticeships and work-based learning, we really don't have a state in the country that we can just copy and paste.
Yeah,
So we have to look at what some of the other countries have done. Switzerland, we're especially intrigued with because the student is not set on the path forever. The student it's very permeable.
right.
They
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
move if they don't like it. They can
Yeah.
exit that path and go to something else, and that's really appealing for us in Indiana. It's not a copy and paste
Right.
straight from Switzerland, but there are a lot of lessons that we can learn. The other one is what they do in middle school, and they really start to integrate
Yeah.
students in middle school to start dream big.
And we're really fortunate that we've got a lot of business leaders in this state stepping up. And as you know very well, the Fairbanks Foundation, Richard M.
Yes.
Fairbanks Foundation, led by Claire Fidian Green, has really invested a lot of dollars and time and effort into making modern day apprenticeships real for our state, and really becoming becoming a leader nationally in this regard. But as you know, it all comes down to the businesses actually stepping up and saying, we want to do this. We want to be part of the solution and education opportunity for high schoolers.
Absolutely. And just to reaffirm, I mean, Claire Fidian Green is a major change agent in Indiana. I mean, she's really pulled together a phenomenal group of not only educators, but I think, as you just mentioned, business and industry leaders from across Indiana who are ready to put their hand in and be a part of building the future talent pipeline in
Yeah.
a better way than what we're doing today. And what's interesting is a lot of times when people think about apprenticeships, they think about the trades.
Sure.
Which, sure, there are important apprenticeships in the trades. Apprenticeships are also for students who may be interested in banking or being an attorney or a doctor or cybersecurity, education, any number of different paths.
Right.
Getting that work-based learning experience and earning that market-driven credential simultaneously so they're ready, that's really the ticket to success for a lot of our students, or at least the foundation.
Yeah, it's an exciting opportunity for our state.
Yes.
So my last question until we get to the speed round, which is coming up very quickly here.
What's the speed round?
Well, we're going to ask you your favorite things.
I'm not speedy. I have lots to say.
I know you do.
Okay.
So any important I always ask our guests, any important mentors to you as you were coming up and now doing big things for our state? A mentor or two for you. I think you mentioned your mother earlier, right? In terms of getting into this. Anybody else that stands out to you?
So every step of the way, my whole life, I've had mentors. I think that is so important as a leader. You have to keep improving and also have to have someone hold you accountable to maybe see the blind spots that you don't see. When you ask the question, a leader that pops in my mind is part of the reason I shared about my mom, of course, but part of the reason I'm on the education path. I don't think I've shared this story with many, but when I was really wrestling between my junior and senior year of college, I mean, that's a pretty late time to change your major. You know, my dad's like, "Oh, I've already paid this much," but I was really wrestling between continuing on, go to law school, or becoming a teacher. And I sat down and met with Stu Silberman, who happened to be the superintendent of the school district that I went to growing up.
Yeah.
So I watched his leadership. I sat down and talked to him out of a recommendation from someone. And I would say that conversation really informed my path. Stu talked about how he was considering dentistry or education. And he felt like education, just as I feel, is a calling. It pulls you in. And so he was really one of the earlier mentors, other than my immediate family, that I think about.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. When you said dentistry, I've got like a lot of dentists in my family. So
did you ever think about that?
I thought about it for a minute, and then I said to myself, I really don't want to put my hands in different people's mouths every single day of my life. So I thought better. But my dad and my sister are dentists.
They do it. That makes sense.
They do it every day.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Katie, we've made it to the speed round where I ask you some fun questions and a couple of serious questions too, but learn a little bit more about you. So your favorite movie?
Pride and Prejudice. I love a good Jane Austen. The 2005 version with Keira Knightley.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I'm going to have to go watch it. I'm going to have to go watch it. That's what I see. I learn a lot on these. Yeah. Favorite place to vacation?
The mountains.
Anywhere in particular?
I really love Montana right now. That's kind of... I've
yet to check it out. I'm a big Colorado guy, but I need to make it to Montana too.
You must. Yeah. Colorado's nice. You must make it to Montana.
I will.
It's beautiful.
Favorite musical artist? John
Prine. He passed away already, but I still his ability to write music. It's magic. It's so good. Do you know him?
I don't. I'll have to check him out.
Oh my gosh.
I'm an 80s guy. I listen to all the old school stuff.
I guess so.
What's the first thing you do in the morning?
Make coffee.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I usually end up at Starbucks.
Yes.
Title of the last book that you read?
So I usually have several books going at once.
Name one that maybe is a favorite that stands out.
So it was probably because the legislative session is so stressful. I have a lighter book. It's probably like a beach read, an Ellen Hildenbrand book or something.
I definitely have not read that one.
Yeah, put it on your list. Put it on your list.
What food can you not live without?
Probably carbs. I mean, most people would say cut the carbs out, but I mean, I love a good beer bread. It's crusty on the outside, kind of soft on the. Yeah.
But what about Indiana tenderloin?
I like an Indiana tenderloin. I like it better on bread.
Me too.
I mean, I'll just own it. It is what it is.
Basketball or football? Favorite sport? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's neither one.
I like to tailgate at football and watch basketball.
Nice.
I love a good tailgate. Don't you?
I love a good tailgate. I grew up in South Bend, so Notre Dame's the home of tailgating.
Oh,
it's one of them anyway.
Yeah. Well, I would say be careful in Indiana.
I got to be a little careful.
That's exactly.
I'm a big IU guy too.
And Purdue.
But I've done tailgating at Purdue, and it's good there too. So I'll be fair to everybody. Best advice you ever received?
So this was pretty recent advice since taking this role. And it sticks in my mind. And it's by someone we both know well, Earl Good. He said, Katie, keep all your passion, but you need to add a little patience. Because I have a lot of passion, but my patience is also a pretty short. Like, we got to move. We're talking about kids here, so urgency matters. So Earl would often remind me of that.
I'm glad that you are impatient when it comes to our kids. That's a great quality in our education secretary.
If Earl is listening, like, note to self, I gotta not be patient. Good.
Well, I think it's great. I understand where Earl is coming from, but I'm glad that you're impatient.
Yeah.
Advice for a young person who wants to become a leader, somebody that maybe aspires to be in your shoes one day. What's good advice?
Be very mindful of who you surround yourself with. I've seen so many young people who have big goals. They are on the right path academically. They're a leader, but they get into a wrong group. And that wrong group, it doesn't have to be, what the people might think about, like a criminal group.
Right.
It can be a group of people that bring you down, that say, no, you can't do that. You're not good enough. You have to surround yourself with people who empower you to keep getting better. With people who support you when you fail. We all fail as leaders and have to grow through that.
Yeah.
So surround yourself with great people and cut people out who are not immediately.
Great advice. I think it's really great advice. So, Katie, thank you so much for joining me on Off the Record with Indiana 250. Thank you for all you're doing for our state.
Thank you.
Keep being an impatient Secretary of Education, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 Off the Record conversation soon.